All right, so here is the situation. We are starting a new unit today. The number is irrelevant because we've done the order has changed, but it's going to be Intro to App Design, or different places it's written will be App Design, whatever it's called, it's this. And it is in a new unit, like I said, and momentarily we will be assigning it. In fact, we'll assign it right now. Period 4. Okay. And so what that means is if you want to go to the old unit, any of the old units, when you get into like my dashboard, you go down to where your normal thing is. You probably have just one of these squares. Click on where are we? Yours will look like this. Okay, Computer Science Principles 23-24, Intro to App Design, current unit. Current unit is what we're starting. To get to old ones, go to the full years curriculum on the top part. And when it pops up, switch it back to 19 and 20, which is where the digital scene project is, Intro to Programming. Okay, we've had a significant amount of time to work on it, so there's that. But it's on you to fix anything, to go back and fix that way. All right, so the new unit, Intro to App Design. Let's take a look at it. And actually, you can go ahead. I think it'll be fine if we do screens. Go ahead and jump in. And so we're going to try and get through 2 of these, lesson 1 and 2. Once again, lesson 1 of a new unit is sort of a big introduction. And these first 3 bubbles are essentially short answer situations that I don't think you can get wrong. And in fact, I'm not terribly concerned that you do these, but we could talk about them. In fact, we'll just say they are not part of an assessment. Okay, so questions. Okay, what are apps that you most currently use? I mean, I don't know what the curriculum expects for you to get out of writing down, taking stock of the apps you currently use, and apps that benefit you. So as we go forward and actually build actual apps where there is some sort of interaction, buttons, things change, as opposed to the digital scene, which was hit run and things happen, or it doesn't, it's just done. It makes a pretty scene. There is some responsibility on you to sort of come up with ideas that are moderately useful as we get further along, and also relies on you to come up with sort of user interface stuff. We'll talk about user interface a lot, what sort of buttons work well, and thinking about different inputs, sliders, etc., and what the best way is based on the thing you're designing. Okay, and 3, describe a different app, one that I don't know if there's anything to be gotten out of these, so we won't. Okay, the rest of this, I think, is just some basic exploration of apps. I don't know what sort of we call deliverables there are. So we aren't going to break up into partners and do these, but this sort of, am I sharing audio? Okay. This sort of app is something that you'll be able to make in like 1 second. This is not a complicated app. Having basic sounds and basic pictures, changing buttons, changing screens. Even this one has bilingual screens, or really it's just text boxes on the same screen. But that's sort of where we're headed. Lots of buttons, lots of screens, lots of user interface or user experience, user interface, whatever you want to call it. And at the beginning, it is this sort of just changing screens, using buttons, linking the screens together in the correct order. We will do something like this, a basic quiz game, and there'll be some general principles like, you can't have an app that gets stuck. We'll always have apps that go back to a home screen, or at least that'll be part of the rubrics for things. And sort of when you start to look at these multiple screens, this quiz that, is sort of like a roguelike where you just either get it right or you go back to the beginning, it will have sort of a logic flow chart type of thing, and you'll be able to visualize what's happening, hopefully. Okay. Yeah, just go ahead and hit finish when you do these things. It'll let me know that you're at least clicking on things when I look at the class's progress, in the middle of the lesson. Not to say that I grade things by looking how many bubbles are green, but this one doesn't have a ton of deliverables, and that's fine. Lesson 2 is going to be more deliverables. So more discussion of user interface and different buttons, and can you tell that this arrow is a button? Maybe that's poor design. Or being able to tell what's actually interactive is important. And yeah, so that is a real sort of basic introduction to making good designs. Okay, and there'll be a lot of actually partner interaction, but not really partner interaction. Classmate review kind of thing, where your classmate's going to try and use your app without any prior knowledge about the app or what it's going to do. And that's part of your QA, your quality assurance testing, is seeing what people do when they don't know what to do. If your user gets on there and doesn't know that this is a clickable image, or this image has an event tied to it, it's probably poor design. And to start again, even get back to the actual beginning. Oh yeah, I guess it does. Okay. Let's see if we can glean some other insight from the rest of these. Let me double check on the checks for understanding and make sure they are the things we want to do. Okay, like this one, it is kind of difficult to see that there is well, it's not that difficult, depending on the image you use and the size you make it. It might not always be clear what it is, so adding a click me might be good, or having some sort of color differentiation if that's the goal. If it is a search and find type of game, then you'd want to hide it a little better. Okay, and is there only one check for understanding? So the rest of the bubbles are the same apps, I think with starting on 9. And does this go to so slow? Okay, so it runs these again. There you have a little bit more. Wait, is it letting you even get to it? Yeah. Okay, so we can't actually get to design mode yet, which is lesson 2 and is really sort of the whole point. In fact, the rest of these, there's only one check for understanding at the end, and it's a multiple choice. And so let's just talk about it now. Okay, match the terms. Okay, input, output, and user interface. Okay, the user clicks a button. Is a an input, an output is a song is played, and any screen, any buttons, images is the user interface. The thing that the user interacts with is the user interface. Okay, and I think I have everything set up. All right, so I don't know if there was that much to get out of lesson 1, but that's fine. Lesson 2, we can get going. Hold on a second. I meant to do hide all and then visible. There we go. All right, so let's move on to lesson 2, which you can get to from the drop down or like 6 other places. And we're going to start talking about design mode. So up until now, we've only had code mode, programming mode. They say code, but I don't like how it rhymes. And up here, you will see our 2 blocks. Okay, like I said, up until now, we've only been in code mode, and that should look familiar, except it's completely different blocks. We have not used an event handler before, but this is going to be probably the most common block moving forward. It affects any sort of interaction. It's how you control it. Okay, so here we have that same map from before that has some basic buttons that change the color of this one swatch, and arrows that move things, and a home button. Okay, look at the elements of the screen, try to move some of them around. What properties can you change? Is there anything you can't change? Okay, so make sure you're in design mode, because that's the only thing you'll be able to see. And any one of these things is an element, okay, including the background. Okay, so there's a text box, and actually this is a text box with nothing in it, and then a text box on top, which is a good trick for letting you adjust text inside of an area. But this is this an image? What is this? Oh, this is probably a text area. And this is an image and buttons. And you'll see that no matter what item you click on, there will be this list of properties. And this is the whole point. Every item has its own properties. And depending on the type of, every element, every individual element on your screen has its own properties. And depending on what it is, will have different properties. Okay. Obviously, there's always size and location. Size and location are critical ones. If it has any text, it's going to have a text color property, and font stuff if it has any text. An image will have its image location, but there's no reason to have any text properties on an image element, and so on. Okay, so you can change any of these properties. You can change the location, size and location of any element, just the way you'd change things in any graphical software. But there's a lot of elements, or a lot of properties that you'll only be able to change in the workspace, and you can change essentially everything, which one is this? Border width, including like border width, border radius is how you would round things over like that. And that stuff is still super fine-tuning type of things that we'll see as we move forward. Okay. And as far as properties you can't change, it's really, if they offer you the option of a property here, you can pretty much change it. I don't know. I guess you could lock in like proportions and ratios and that sort of thing, but that's still optional type of thing. All right, so let's go on to bubble 2. And okay, so I can never remember what things look like at the beginning. So making your apps, making your design elements look pretty. App Lab has a lot of quick ways to do that. The main one being choosing a theme for your colors rather than going through each element and choosing its text color and background color and everything. You can use one of the themes and it will take care of it. Does Control Z not work for this? Yeah, it doesn't. So that's one of the problems, though. If you change any sort of property for one of the elements, when you go to change it to a new theme, it will have kept whatever change you made. And so for this one, we're just going to find the element or the theme that goes with it, which appears to be Area 51. Feel free to take a look at the other ones. I think it's a quick way to make your apps, your individual apps, look sharp and less sort of unintentional. Yeah, I think it looks intentional when you use one of the themes, but it's probably not going to be required other than on this app where you have to find it. And so themes, that's a thing. And bubble 3. And is this what it started with? Let's start over. Okay, and there are, of course, not infinite, but seemingly infinite custom colors for everything. Anything that has a color property, which is almost everything, will have your slider situation. So you don't necessarily need to know the RGB triplet, although it is useful because it, you'll see, why is it stuck on? Yeah, there we go. How if you're looking for an exact color and you found it, in order to make the other ones the exact same color, you'll want to know what that number is, because you can try to get close, but it'll never be exact. The let's see here, what else do, because I want it to look right. Just going through and matching these shouldn't be too hard. I don't think this, yeah, this is not a theme. We need to go through each one. Okay, so first, background color. It's only used once. So every single element is sort of in a layer on top of each other, or in their own layer. And just like anything else, it can go in front of or behind. And when you get a bunch of elements on a screen, it can be difficult to find an individual one, or you'll have tons of things stacked that only show up on certain occasions. Over here on the right, we'll see a drop down of every element on the screen, or actually every element in the app, because eventually we will have multiple screens like that jump back and forth, that you make it jump back and forth. And every element that you have can be gotten from here, even if it's hidden or, layered underneath. And every screen has at least one element being the screen. Okay, you could probably call it background, but when you create a new, I'll just make a new one here. Create a new screen, its only element is itself. And screens only have two properties other than their ID, which we'll talk about coming up with meaningful and descriptive element IDs, which will make your life a lot better. There's background color, and there is image if you want an image to fill the background, although usually it's easier to just bring out an image element and do that instead of attaching the image to the background. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is trying to find this color. Okay, so the element we are working with is screen. Make sure that when you click on something, you can see what you're clicking on. Make sure you get somewhere in the background. So that says screen. And now we just need to choose a color. For this purpose, for this bubble, I just want it to get close. You don't need to get an eyedropper or some sort of app that decides exactly what that color is. But something kind of close. Is it darker? It's bluer. That's close, I think. There we go. Background color. You can see it has all of our different formats that we're used to. Hexadecimal, RGBA, what's the other one? Hue, saturation. Yeah, hue, saturation, and lightness, I think, or light. That's a whole nother triplet situation. If you keep it on, how do I keep it on RGB? I want a different, oh, well, it doesn't matter because what I'm about to do, copy paste anyway. All right, so app title, click on the app title element. You can see it's called title label. And we want to change the text color on this. And we want it to be pure white, which is RGB 255, 255, 255. Or we can just go ahead and grab white from our color swatch. And so icons, AppLab has a ton of icons built in that you would find the same way that you would add an image. And all of these icons, I mean, we'll use a few of them, obviously not all of them, but icons as a, even though it's an image property, still has an icon or has a color property, which you wouldn't think a image has a color, but when it is an icon, there we go, that's pretty good. All right, and then what else do we have? We have the color of the button and the color of the text up here, this information text appears to be, oh, and the bottom button looks like they're all the same color. So even if I get it just close enough to what I want, I'm going to copy it to each of them so that it looks the same on mine. So in my, clicking on my, what do they call it? Info text, I want to find a text color that is close to what's going on here, a little bit redder. That's pretty good. Happy with that. And so whatever that color is, this is its hex code. And whether it shows up in hex or RGB, you can still copy that and go to one of these buttons that we want to change its background color to. And it's like I said, instead of trying to find the exact thing, just paste in that other one and it will match exactly. Same thing with that one. Okay, whatever color you choose for one of them, just get that whatever formats it's in, RGB or hex, and put that into the correct property so that they match. Okay, that is a requirement for this. Make sure the colors of your buttons and text match. Shouldn't be too hard. I just showed you how to do it. I suppose you could copy my color code, but you don't really need to. Just get it close. And I think that's it for properties. I'd probably make it a little darker, but that's the key is that they all match and it looks intentional. That's going to be our theme, is it looks intentional. Okay. All right. So yeah, at this point, there's no programming involved, so nothing's actually going to happen. But it's not a bad idea to hit run and then finish. So if you have to stop, you can know where you left off. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We need to figure out how to add images. Okay, there's a couple ways to add images, and I'm actually going to tell you to do it a different way than this way. So there are, for any image element, you can see right now, I guess this will probably be the first thing you've ever dragged out. Any one of these elements, you just grab and drag it in, and now you have one. You can resize it and rearrange it the way you know how, and deleting it's the same thing. Unfortunately, I don't think there is, yeah, Control Z doesn't work for this, so be careful. And so we start out, the only element we have on the entire screen is the screen itself. We're going to bring out an image so that we have something to do the work with. Let's go. And the way they are saying to do it is when you're working with the image, which yours will probably be image 1 since I've just dragged out a bunch and deleted them. Inside of the properties for the image, there is this area right here, and you can upload files from your My Properties, what have you. The easier way to do this is to get the image address. Okay, so if you do a image search and I mean, it doesn't have to be a kitten, but why not? And you have an image that you like, you can right click on it in various places, either in the website, but sometimes it won't let you, MCPS won't let you go to the website. You want copy image address. I don't know if can I make this? Yeah, it doesn't get any bigger. Copy image address. Now copy image address. Each and every photograph and video on the internet has its own URL. And all you need to do is copy and paste that in there, and please work. Yeah, there you go. So you've never downloaded it. Your app is just sort of referencing the image that's on another website, which has the downside of if the owner of the image where you're referencing it changes it, takes it down, it too will disappear from your app. But that's not a huge concern for us. Once you have the image in there, there's a couple settings you might be familiar with. Fill, which, you know, stretches. Cover is stretched the other way. Contain is normal, and none is its native resolution, which I don't know how you would ever prefer this because of our limited canvas size. But there you go. That's how you do images. And we're going to do a lot of images. It's an easy way to make your app look good, especially with icons and stuff. There'll be home icons all over the place and check mark icons, and we will try to make it look professional, or again, at least intentional. Okie dokie. All right, so we have a basic app with already have the title on it. All we need to do is add some icons, and icons work the same way as images. And well, let me find the correct icon before I start spacing it. Okay, so this one is, let's go ahead to choose, and we go to icons and movie camera. All right, and we can resize it the same way that we would for anything. And something like that, maybe. You can get very granular with the position of things with the properties, especially if you're trying to have like things be exactly the same size once you have resized them, or exactly lined up horizontally. That's where you would definitely be using the actual X and Y coordinates. Other than that, you're kind of eyeballing most things. And so the other icon, let's look here, film, literally film. And is this the same icon? It looks different. No, it's the same. Actually, it does look different. Looks like a different scale, but that's fine. They may have changed it since they made this thing. Oh, it is different. They have four grid marks on the side. Let's see here. Is there another one? Did they change it? Why would they have changed it? Nope, that's it. And, space it so it looks the same. Wow, it looks really different now that I notice it. I don't recall that being different. I wonder why they changed it. Okay, only a couple more bubbles, and that is going to be it for today's lesson. Relatively short. That's fine. All right, so let's see. Meaningful and descriptive names. Just like with functions, it will benefit you and any other human working with your code, helping, whatever, to have meaningful and descriptive names. Just like with functions and variables, which we haven't done yet, parameters, giving yourself names that make sense helps. When you drag in new elements, you'll see everything is just called whatever the next it is in sequence. And that's not very useful when we get to the point where we are programming things. Because when you get in and start choosing the different elements, okay, was that label 1 or label 2 that I'm trying to deal with? Where if you call it play button or cookie image, that sort of thing, it will be a lot easier. Okay? Or at least anything that you plan on interacting with. So here, all we need to do is change the name of button 1 to play button. And that doesn't change the text. So the text on the button is whatever you want it to be, but you need an original ID name. Okay, if you have another screen with another button that says play, you can't call it play button also, because that's this one's name. Okay, there are exceptions, and we are sticking with camel case, meaning initial letter has to be lowercase, and the rest just whatever makes sense. Capitalize the first letter of each new word. And there are some limitations, like you can't call things start button. No, what's the one? Go. There's some that are reserved, and we come across like you can't call it whatever the internal thing calls the run button. Can't remember what it is. But what am I working on? This is play button. And now when we go into code mode, you'll see play button as one of the options. The event handler buttons, all of them, and there'll be a bunch of other ones, or I should say the user interface buttons, will let you type things in. Okay, which is dangerous because it will let you do typos. Okay, you could type in play button and this won't work for play button because of case sensitivity or anything typo, that sort of thing. Please listen to me now. When you are selecting things from the user interface control, please always select them from this drop-down menu. Okay? Because even if you had a typo when you named it, when you go to choose an option, the typo will be consistent, and that's fine. As long as they match, it's fine. Okay, but they have to match. And the way to get them to match is to use the drop down, the chevron menu on the drop downs. Right. Each element using SD button, call it something like that. And change the rest of the elements to have meaning. Okay, so something like the cookie image, especially if it's going to be clicked on. So you might think, and it's fine if you did cookie image, but later on, try to break you of the habit later to do where when you have an app with like 10 different images on it, having each of those elements start with the word image will let them show up alphabetically when you go to selecting things. But I think that might be too much at this point. So we can just go with cookie image. It should, whether you call it like image cookie or cookie image, you should have the type of element at the very least in the name, so that you know, okay, well, is this the cookie text or the cookie image, and that sort of thing. So we need that. For things that are not going to move or not be interacted with, don't necessarily need super fantastic names. Maybe title label is probably good for this one. And instruction label is fine also. And same thing for screens. Unless you have multiple screens, we don't really need to name it, which about half of our apps will be single screen, just everything happening on the front. And that's all we need to do for this one. And I think there's only one more, and then a check for understanding. Okay. Your job is to copy this app. Or excuse me, this screen. Okay. I will give you a few minutes head start to do it. And then in a few minutes, we will go over it. And we'll do stop share so that in the video or the replay, you'll see that I'm not actually doing anything in the middle. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got going on here. All right, so let's go through this in order. It's always easiest to work, usually easiest to work back to front. So first thing to do is let's see if let's see if there's a theme that's kind of close to it. Will save us some time. Which I think there might be. Is it polar? I think it might be polar. Will get us most of the way there. Okay, so now it's about figuring out which elements these are. Okay, so text area is going to be like the most common. Well, I don't want to say most common. It's pretty versatile. You can add text to it. You can put a image in it. I think. I thought you were able to do background. Oh, maybe it's something else. Most of your output will be in a text area if there's any sort of text output. And so we need one. Let me make this a little more to scale. That sort of fills the middle section with some border on the side. And there is no border width on the, there's no border color. So if you just set border width to 0, it'll get rid of it. And it does look like the radius of this one is a little bit lower, but not 0, I don't think, like 1 or 2. Now, as far as getting this centered, which is probably what we want, you can use the, like, I don't know if you call them precision movements, but let's see here. So if we know it's 320 side to side, if we make it 220, if I can figure out how to type, why am I not able to type? Do I have, weird, it's not letting me type. Do I have like proportion locked on? I have num lock. That's really strange. Is it because it's running? I don't know. That's strange because I can move it. But we can make it, if we make it 220 wide, that means we have 100 more pixels to use, which means we can offset it by 50. So here is another important concept. Please do listen, even if you were past this. Every element in graphic design, as far as I know, has its X and Y location as the top left corner of the element. Okay. That is where it is. So it has its X and Y position, distance from the left. Its X position is this corner's distance from the left. Its Y position is this corner's distance from the top. And its other two dimensions are width and height. So we are only concerned with the top left corner and then its width and height. But if I've made this thing 220 pixels wide, and actually it's square. Oh, is that what's happening? No, that's not what's happening. That means, so 220, and we have 320 to work with, means that we can use 50 on either side, which means we can set this to 50. I really don't know why it's not letting me type in. But either way, that's how you would center it. Some quick arithmetic. Okay, for up here, the keyboard is certainly an image. So we can drag this out, drag out a new image. You would need to find a good JPEG or whatever file format online. There are obviously a lot of options, but you do want one that doesn't have anything else on the like any sort of logo or watermark, and it's still copy image address. Hopefully this works. And when you are, okay, so you can see text area 1. I'm not concerned with changing the names for this one because we're not actually going to interact with it. But on this new image, you would put in your image. Is that the one I had before? Why did it work better before? Oh, you know why it worked better before is because it was on a white background. How can we make this? All right, so the cheesy way to do this is to cover up the front. What I really need is the right. Let's see if we can find a PNG. And this, maybe this is it. I'll find a good one. And no, that's not it. What is happening? I think this one might be closer. Copy image. Why? Why is this happening? Copy image address. There we go. All right. So if you search, probably piano keyboard PNG, it's like the 5th one. Or no, it's whatever this one is. I don't know. Try your best to find one that looks good. All right, so we have our image address or our image laid out, but clearly some of it is covered up by the text area above it, and that's fine. That's what we're going to need to deal with. So what are we going to put on top of this? This blue background and the title can be a text area. We need to change a few things first. Obviously, we need to get rid of the border or border width and border radius because it's square everywhere it is. And then just stretch it to the size that we want, which is something like this, maybe. And so you would think that in order to recreate this, we would type practice log, and what else do we have for text? We have center and font size, and that font is probably Times-ish. There we go. The problem is when you do this like this, you can never get it sort of centered the way that you might want. And so the way you're going to do that is use one text area as the background and then another text area with or actually label, I suppose. They can kind of be used for both. But this is where you would type in practice law. And we'll set the font to Times, I guess, if we're trying to copy it. And you could set background color to anything invisible. And then it will be clear on the background. So if you saw how to do that, under background color, there is all of the color sliders, but then this is the opacity slider underneath. And if, you know, obviously if you slide it to 0 opacity, the background will be, what is going on? This is really weird. The background will be invisible, which is what we want. And it so now we can sort of space it out exactly where we want. We still want to center it. That'll be easier. We still want it a little bit bigger. Okay. And this may seem kind of tedious, and that's fine, but the point of it is to get you into the properties of a bunch of different elements. Also, choosing the correct element is super useful. Like we have text inputs are different than text areas. text inputs have a different background color and a different text type of property situation, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so we need a couple of icons. Let's bring out a couple images. One of them, let's choose its image. I already forgot what it was. Music notes. Music notes, and its color is yellow. Yellow, and we want kind of a bright yellow. There we go. And, you know, we could probably just use the RGB for yellow, which is what, 255, 255.0. There we go. And we can do that for both of them. This is the headphones. So we'll go to its image and headphones, and its background, no, icon color is same as the other one. We'll get a RGB triplet, 255, 255.0 is yellow, and we need to size them appropriately. Actually, they're even smaller than that, and we're getting close. Yes. What do you mean, like? They only have a few text families. They don't you can make it bigger, I guess. I don't know. Okay. So yeah, these are still too big. And we'll recreate that. Okay, and so we got a couple other things. This I want to be a little bit shorter. We've got a drop down. That's what this is over here. It's already got the right properties except for its size. And drop downs have a property of options. Okay, and that will be important later. And the options you are typing in, if we wanted to make it look exactly the same, you could just type in 8 o'clock. There we go. And the next one is a text input. We'll find a text input and resize it. Text inputs have their own special property of placeholder text. Okay, placeholder text is what's there before you type anything. Okay, and as soon as you type there, it disappears. Okay, and the placeholder text for this should say instrument. Lovely. Okay, well, we'll try up here for a sec. A regular button, not a radio. It does kind of. Let's get some more space, and this button is a little bit too wide. Okay, so we need background color is good. We need border color, and let's make that our pure yellow, which is again 255, 255.0. And it looks like the border width is a little bit bigger. That looks pretty good, maybe. And I think it's the right size border width, just needs to be a little taller. And you can see, all right, the border radius, which is just one corner, if perfectly round over, it's called a stadium shape or this sort of tablet shape, the radius needs to be half of its height, I think. So if we make the height 50 and we make the border radius 25, it will be a rounded over thing if that's what you're going for. And that is what we're going for here. And I think that's it. You could space them a little better than I have. Like this probably goes a little bit up. But for the most part, that's almost all of the design elements. Radio buttons and check boxes we'll get to maybe. Those are more advanced and they require programming to like connect to each other, so you know which check boxes are which. And sliders are cool. We'll get to those later. But you need some sort of input to have it connect to anything. But other than that, text areas, images, buttons, text inputs, drop down, that's like 90% of our design elements. Okay, so that's it for the challenges. Let's do the one check for understanding. Please answer this. Show me you know what we're talking about. Why is it important for element IDs to have meaningful names? We talked about it at the beginning. Please know that. All right. Do you folks have any questions of how to fix any of these things? I think I'll find, let's see here. This is not a great. I can post this shared image link in the whatever it's called, calendar spreadsheet. And I think that is it. Let's put it down on. Let's put it over here. Okay, so if you are, let's go like okay. There we go. All right, so if you're looking at the calendar spreadsheet, this link right here will give you this piano. And as long as you know the concept of getting a copy image address, you will be fine. Okay, it just goes in where you put an image, just copy and paste, and that is it. Okay, any questions? All right.